Although I really want to test it out.
Dude, I've been up since 5 a.m. I'm about to just lead off with Miami. Go back to sleep.
Why have you been up since?
I don't know. I woke up and think about sleep.
What time did you go to sleep?
Like 2:30.
What? You got 3 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
What type of drugs did you take to be somewhat normal right now?
I have a latte next to me and another one on my counter.
Oh God. Well, we're back. We're back, Adam, and we're not gonna. We're gonna keep this one straight and narrow. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL or NBA strategy show. Sorry, presented by Prize Picks. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Adam Scherer. If you're wondering what happened to yesterday's show, we did everything we could to get it up. We were trying to figure. There's a joke for you too, Adam. You can keep this one going. Everything we did, we could do, and we just had to put it to private because it was shit. It just lagged out forever, and then eventually stopped working. But we're back. Adam's with me, hanging out. Adam, please do not mention DH throughout this show at all.
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to tell you how much I disagree with you, but I guess we need to do a basketball show.
Well, we were really just joking around. The problem is like the fact that YouTube did that, then you go, what don't we know? But anyway, glad to have you guys with us. Once again, apologies for yesterday. Truly no idea what happened. I think it was a YouTube thing. Jordan thinks it was something on the production end. Whatever it was, we'll work. We'll figure it out. Josh, see, dude, you thought that was just me. I'm telling you, Josh was all about it.
No, I said I think you are both morons before the show, not just you.
Okay, yeah. Well, we would have had some fun if you were on there with us. It's good conversation until it lags and you can't do a show anymore. But more than anything, hit that thumbs up as you're walking in the door. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. If you're listening in podcast form, welcome to you as well. Review it, rate it, whatever it is. All of that stuff goes a long way in helping us continue to do this and put these shows out every day. Tell your friends about the show as well. Anyway, we got that's what I said, Josh. Yeah, exactly. We're not crazy people around here. But anyway, 10 games, Adam. Interesting one too, because there's already, a lot of times you don't really start getting any value to pop up until later in the day. That doesn't seem to be the case. 10 game slate, but we seem to have a decent amount working for us already.
Yeah, and I'm sure more will pop up as well. But yeah, definitely doesn't seem like a slate where we're going to be struggling to find any.
Let's dive straight into this one. You got Indy, you got Orlando, 233 total. Indiana Pacers playing their second of a back-to-back today. Just looking at this without Halliburton, right? They're 5-point favorites on the road. I'm wondering if, and we could talk about if Nembhard's still out too. What do we do? Do we look? Duarte played 26, 27 minutes in the starting lineup yesterday. McConnell back in the starting lineup, 2 games, has played monster minutes. This has just been a team with Halliburton out. And we'll get into Nembhard, but it's going to get considerable value. Plus, short rotation, like 9-man rotation yesterday, but 2 guys only played, pretty scarce minutes.
Yeah. Sorry, what'd you say?
I was saying that the rotation, or was that, on the 21st, there was a 9-man rotation where Duarte and Brissett only played 19 or 17 and 12 minutes. And then again, yesterday, you had a few guys coming off the back of the bench, still only playing 6-7 minutes. Queen played 6 minutes. It was the starters pulling massive minutes again yesterday.
Yeah, and we didn't have Nembhard yesterday. We'll have to wait and see injury news on this team in general. But yeah, you got Duarte in the starting lineup. He played 26. You got your normal run from Miles Turner. One big rotation change, and we've seen this off and on from Indiana, but Jalen Smith did not get all of the backup minutes. Isaiah Jackson got some of them as well. Jalen Smith didn't play at all in the second half. That's just a risk factor to going to him if you do go to him. Not only is he just, the straight up backup to Turner, but at times you're going to get Jackson in there. Benedict Mathurin came off the bench, but still played 34 minutes. We had seen him play 38 in the previous game. So if Nembhard misses this game, it is likely that you're still getting, mid 30s in minutes from Mathurin. I assume you would get Duarte in the starting lineup, probably playing 26 to 28 minutes again. You have TJ McConnell at a cheaper price tag than you had him at yesterday. When he starts, he typically plays big minutes. We've seen that in previous seasons when he has gotten starts in place of Brogdon or Halliburton. This year, in his 2 starts without Halliburton. He's played huge minutes. So I don't think that should really be surprising to anybody. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. 60% ownership on a 10-game slate is
that seems
high.
like a lot.
But at the same time, like, this is where it's important to keep in mind that you're not just trying to build lineups full of under-owned guys. If TJ McConnell has a 40% chance of being optimal, yes, he's over-owned at 60%, but 40%, a 40% chance of being optimal, most of the best lineups you can make are still going to have TJ McConnell, and they're going to be pivoting off of over-owned guys elsewhere that are much less likely to succeed. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not just, saying, oh, TJ McConnell shouldn't be 60% owned, bad play, or, stupid shit like that. You're still trying to build a lineup that has some reasonable chance of doing well. And TJ McConnell at 6K is one of the most likely guys on this slate to succeed.
Guess how many potential assists he has in the last 2 games?
Combined or average?
Yeah, combined.
40.
47.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's an insane number. He's out there playing massive minutes and he's running the offense. You're right. Like 60% ownership seems like a lot, but he's not overpriced. Ton of minutes, good matchup against Orlando. It makes sense. Plus Duarte, if he starts and Nembhard's out, Duarte's $3,400.
Yeah. And he's not a great point per minute guy, but if you're going to get, 26 to 28 minutes, that's going to make him look good. Obviously, right now, he's not projected for any ownership, but that will change if Nembhard's out. If Nembhard is in at 4,700, right now we have him projected for 5% ownership. He'd be somewhat interesting in tournaments at the low ownership. The problem is just with McConnell starting, you're really hurting Nembhard's rates. He's like a 0.67 fantasy point per minute guy, even with Halliburton off, as long as McConnell's on the floor, because McConnell just takes all of the assist opportunities. So it's still a pretty big negative for him with McConnell starting, but also he's not 20. Damn, it's too early. I can't do math right now. What is 12? He's not a 12-1 dog to McConnell.
Yeah.
Dude, I did not sleep much last night.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's just fine.
I just my like brain just kept wanting to say 20-1, and I was like, that is not what 20 or 60 divided by 5.
Well, it's funny because you were about to give up and ask me what it was, and then it clicked.
Yeah.
Like it just took an extra few seconds to populate. But yeah, I mean, Nembhard played though, and only played 21 minutes as a starter in that last game that McConnell started too.
Yeah, which is just, like another reason to be concerned. But even if he were to play his normal, like 30 to 32 minutes, assuming most of those minutes are with McConnell, it's tough to be very confident in him.
What do you want to do with the Magic side today? Because we already know Indy's going to be a pretty nice team to look at.
Yeah, Indy's going to look good sort of one way or the other. The Orlando side is a little bit trickier. It's a very good matchup, so there is still stuff to be interested in here. The problem, though, is just that you're getting this healthy Orlando team. The only guys on their injury report are Chumo Kiki, Caleb Houston, and Kevon Harris all out. None of those guys matter to this rotation. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You got a 10-man rotation last game. They all played at least 15 minutes. Isaac played 10. Everybody else played at least 15. We knew Isaac was on an 8 to 12 minute limit. Not sure what the purpose of that was, why he didn't just stay in the G League a little longer. But regardless, I think it's kind of the same situation as we had going into last game, where Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, those guys all look good, average to good. You have double-digit ownership right now coming into Carter, Fultz, and Banchero. You're likely to get like 32 to 34 minutes in most games from Banchero. Carter should be 30 to 32. Wagner should be 32 to 34. Fultz typically going to be around 30. It makes all of them look like at least average plays in a really good spot against Indiana. But beyond those guys, I don't think there's really much of anything you can get to.
All right. Yeah. And Indy playing at a top 5 pace on the year. So this could end up being one of those games you see a lot of scoring with. But I think you're right. Brooklyn and Philly, let's talk about this one. So you got the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant remains out at least for a little bit longer here. Joel Embiid is questionable with the foot, though, on the other side of this game. So obviously you want to pay attention to the deeper dive. Any news that comes out throughout the day, especially if you're in our Discord, live before log, all of that stuff is going to be pretty important here. 10-game slate. Kyrie Irving is on DraftKings at least 10,100. So, you are paying for him against a pretty good defense. But of course, with no Kevin Durant, we at least have to talk about the prospects of getting to Kyrie Irving today.
Yeah, and the ceiling is clearly massive. He plays big minutes, and those minutes are even more secure without Durant, but also clearly sees a bump in usage as you would expect. Very high upside option, $10,100 price tag. Played about 40 minutes last game. Right now, he's only projected for 8% ownership on DraftKings, 10% chance of being optimal. Still like getting there. The issue is just, with it being a 10-game slate, you're going to have plenty of very good guard options that you can get to. You're also going to have plenty of guys in this price range, whether they're guards or not, that you can get to. But overall this year, without Durant on the floor, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute for Irving, 32% usage rate, 27.5% assist percentage. Certainly going to look like a good option to get to.
What about Ben Simmons here? Like if anyone isn't resigned to the fact that you're just not going to get shot volume from him, even with Kevin Durant off the floor, like the usage doesn't distribute to Ben Simmons when he doesn't want to shoot, but does have considerable upside just as a playmaker, as a rebounder, as a shot blocker, getting all of that stuff when it comes to stocks. Is 6% ownership on him reasonable right now?
I think it's reasonable. I mean, we have a 6% chance of him being optimal. The big issue I have with Simmons when Irving is in is that I worry about his playing time, because in the game that Irving and Durant were both out, you got like 34 minutes or so from Simmons, but you've seen these like 28 to 30 minute games when Irving is in. And a big reason for that is that they would prefer Ben Simmons not to be closing, since he can't shoot free throws and can't score. And you don't need his playmaking as much when you have Kyrie out there. When Kyrie was out, you needed Ben Simmons to be the playmaker and the facilitator for this team. So you kind of had to suck it up, give him those extra minutes, and keep him on the floor even to close games. But, once again, last game, we saw a closing lineup where Seth Curry replaced Ben Simmons. And so you got Irving, O'Neal, Curry, Harris, and Claxton, gets you more shooting on the floor. You have Kyrie as the primary ball handler. And that's just what I expect them to do down the stretch more often than not when Kyrie is in. So you're basically looking at around the 30 minutes from Ben Simmons at 6,500. He's a fantasy point per minute guy without Durant on the floor, but you're still going to need above average production compared to normal for him. And also that's without factoring in whatever is going to be going on in his head playing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he already did though, and he had a fine game. He played
I mean, that's not an actual reason that I would not play him, but
right. I don't expect him to shoot. Like, honestly, he already doesn't shoot. I don't anticipate him doing a whole lot of, shooting the rock here, but played 32 minutes against him earlier this season, had 48 fantasy, 11 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, 3 steals. Like he was fine. Yeah. It was anticlimactic to put it lightly, but
yeah, no, the actual reason that I have hesitation here is just that I expect like 30 minutes.
Right. Exactly. Do you have anything else from Brooklyn then?
Nick Claxton's not pulling any ownership. It's clearly a risky spot here, but he's been better without Durant on the floor. 1.23 DraftKings points per minute. He's been playing more minutes as well. He's coming off of about 36 minutes last game. You've been seeing a lot of low to mid 30s games from him. I'm not confident in him at 7,600, but only pulling 3.5% ownership, 8% chance of being optimal. I think after Irving, Claxton's the guy that I like the most.
So on the Philly side, right, you have a situation where no one's pulling any ownership right now. But if Joel Embiid, who seems to be a legitimate questionable right now, ends up sitting, that could make things kind of interesting, right? Because he missed last game, but Harden was also out. So if Embiid is out, do we see Maxey back in the starting line? Because Maxey started last game, but like I said, there was no James Harden either. So it was Maxey, Melton, Harris, Tucker, and Montrezl Harrell. What do you think the starting lineup looks like if Embiid is out and, of course, Harden plays, because there's no reason he shouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of 2 ways it can go. You could either get Harrell in the starting lineup. Well, 3 ways. You could get Harrell or Reed in the starting lineup. I assume it would be Harrell. Or you can get Maxey in the starting lineup with PJ Tucker at the 5. I think they can get away with either one here. Not sure which way they would go. We should have this news probably before the slate starts. If not right around the time the slate starts. But basically, if Maxey starts at 6,500, if Embiid is out and Maxey starts, he looks decent. Still has to contend with James Harden, but should play more minutes. If Harrell starts in place of Embiid at 4,600, he'll look like a pretty good option against a Brooklyn front court that isn't great at rebounding, but he is, priced up a little bit as well.
what would we be doing at this stage with, sub 10K Harden against Brooklyn, Maxey 6,500. We've seen that price come down a little bit. If Embiid sits, how much value ends up arising? Not even value, just how many good fantasy viable options with Embiid sideline? Because right now, this is, one of the lesser appealing teams if everybody's healthy and playing their full allotment of minutes.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be a lot of value in the sense of like cheap plays, unless, Harrell starts, then obviously he's fine. But I think it's value more in the sense that you're just going to get mid to upper range guys underpriced. Without Joel Embiid on the floor this year, James Harden's played 384 minutes. He's averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute, 30.5% usage rate, 45% assist percentage. Tobias Harris is at 1.07 DraftKings points per minute. DeAnthony Melton's at a fantasy point per minute. Maxey's at 1.05. You just get bumps in production for all of those guys. So while they're not exactly cheap, they're just all going to look better. If Embiid is in, I also think you can go to him or James Harden. Harden coming in at 9,900, only pulling 3% ownership. He's still likely to give you 36, 37 minutes. He's still a very good point per minute guy in a good spot. Embiid at 11.4, pretty good spot here as well. So it's nothing is as big a priority as it would be, as Harden would be if Embiid is out. But from a tournament standpoint, with both guys pulling 2 to 3% ownership, I still think it's a good spot for them in large field tournaments.
Yeah, very, very low ownership on them right now. The Embiid, a lot hinges on Embiid for sure. But yeah, sub 3% across the board on everybody for the Philadelphia 76ers right now. You want to talk Atlanta OKC?
Yeah.
All right. So Hawks -1 on the road, 238 total against this OKC team. Still waiting on a Okongwu and DeAndre Hunter. So we'll see where that one takes us throughout the day. That's why we have the deeper dive. We have live before live, all that good stuff. But Clint Capella at 5,700 in this game against OKC is pretty significant.
Yeah, it's a good price tag. It's going to look even better if Okongwu was out, just because it helps to solidify those minutes for Capella. You saw him play 36 minutes last game without Okongwu. You're certainly not projecting anything close to that if Okongwu was in. It's more likely you're getting like 27, 28 from Capella, 20 to 21 to Okongwu. At 5,700, though, even if he's in, Capella's going to look pretty good. But if he's out is where there's really a lot of value here and where Capella starts to look like a true priority on the slate.
The spike in minutes is significant though, right? Because like you said, while you're not, I don't know, you still probably don't project him for 36.
You probably go like 30 to 32.
Right. But that's still, still have the upside for more. Whereas if Okongwu was in there, you're not really getting that same upside. The last time Capella played anything close to that was November 5th when he played 35 minutes. So
yeah, he's played 2 games without Okongwu this year. He's averaged 34.6 minutes per game, 36 last game. So around 33 in the first
32, 33. Yeah.
Yeah. In 30 games with Okongwu, he's at 26.5 minutes per game.
Right. Huge difference there at 5,700. You put it this way, he's not priced for Okongwu to be out.
No, definitely not. He's barely priced for Okongwu to be in.
Yeah, exactly. And against this OKC team, high total, nice game. Trae Young, John Collins, Murray. The clear option here is Capella, especially if Okongwu is out. Let me ask you this real quick. What do you think Capella's ownership looks like if Okongwu sits?
So right now we have Capella projected for 23% ownership. We also have him projected for 36 DraftKings points. So I think even though we have Okongwu in the projections,
we're hedging.
I think that ownership number is pretty much in line with Okongwu being out, because that projection is going to come down if Okongwu ends up being in.
SGA, baby. Here's another. We've already talked about in 3 games. We talked about 3 point guards who are all in this exact same price range, right? Which I think is one of the reasons that they're all coming in, 8% to Irving, 8% to SGA, 3% to James Harden right now. But yeah, toss SGA is another one in this same bucket at the same price tier. Another great player.
Yeah, it is one thing that makes these bigger slates a little bit more fun is like you can just play these really good players and they're still going to be low owned. Whereas, if it's like a 4-game slate, you get into like, oh, well, obviously I want to play SGA, but half the field's playing him. Here, it's just like, oh, I can play some Kyrie. I can play some Harden. I can play some SGA, and these guys all manage to be contrarian plays at the same time, which is pretty nice. But yeah, another just really good option here. You're typically getting 35, 36 minutes per game from SGA. He's about a 1.4 DraftKings point per minute guy, projected for 8.5% ownership, 9% chance of being optimal. Nothing really to see there. Josh Giddey at 7,800, another sort of interesting tournament piece. Doesn't typically play as many minutes as SGA, but you can expect 30 to 32. He's a good point per minute guy as well, although his price tag is getting up a bit. Lou Dort at 5,200 as a last piece in, I think is fine at 5% owned. Never going to be excited about getting to him, but you can typically expect around 30 minutes. And he is a small forward, which is typically a weaker position to fill. But SGA, I think clearly the best option for me from Oklahoma City.
And if you guys, you hear Adam, you hear us talking about ownership projections, about the boom bust tool, which is huge, right? You're getting optimal lineup probability. You're getting ownership score, leverage score. The best thing about it is like you can get the ownership in the same tool, the boom probability, the bust score, ceiling, floor, everything. The projection is everything is in one spot for you guys. So of course you want to just look at player projections and all that and all the projected stats. You can do that on the player projection page, ownership projection page. But the boom bust tool is massive for so many reasons, which is why we're always referencing it. The lineup builder, the lineup generator, you're getting 5 days completely free. Unlike football, where it's like, oh shit, dude, I just did this on a Tuesday. That doesn't help me much. Where we have like one game on a Thursday, assuming it's even regular season. With basketball, you're getting 5 days of basketball no matter what. Every single day, ranges in slate size, everything, all of our tools, lineup builder, lineup generator, you name it. And I love to see the tweet that we had pop up from Brajal. I think I pronounced that correctly, saying, thank you guys. The lineup generator and lineup builder are my favorite tools. This is great because the lineup generator is new. Dude took down 50,000 on FanDuel yesterday. You saw it, Adam. Took down 50K using the lineup generator. Yeah,
that's awesome to see. I was pretty jealous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing though. And he didn't max it either. No, he had 20 entries in the shot.
I think he had like $120 in play.
Yeah, wow, you're right. He played $122 in the 50K using the lineup generator, using the lineup builder, all that stuff. And you guys already know. The hope is that you love these tools. You win some money and you stick around. You join the community. You join the Discord. The link's in the description. The link is in the chat. And 5 free days. If you hate it, we will gladly refund your misery, which is exactly $0. But check it out. Get in on all the tools. Learn them over the course of 5 days. Hopefully take down some big wins. Or even, dude, even just make money. Be profitable and keep it going. And keep yourself set up for a win. Links in the description and in chat. Get you 5 free days. All of our NFL tools, everything that we have, or NBA tools. All right, let's keep it going here then. We just crossed Atlanta OKC off the board. Talk a little bit about Minnesota here. So did you see this thing with Rudy Gobert where he played after that absence, right? I think missed a trio of games, played, but then he's sore. The groin is sore, Adam. So he's questionable again today.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that Minnesota's been frequent liars with their injury report this year. As far as like they do it in the less annoying way. It's not that they don't list guys and then they rule them out. It's that they list everybody as questionable and then they play. I don't necessarily think that's the case with Gobert just because he has been dealing with the injury. But I mean, for example, I think we went 2 weeks straight where Anthony Edwards was questionable and didn't miss a game. So I don't always worry as much about Minnesota Q tags, but in this case, I do think it's reasonable to worry at least a little bit. But it's also just a really big deal from a fantasy standpoint because if he's out, then you just go right back to having Naz Reid be one of the best plays on the entire slate. He's $4,700 again on DraftKings. He, goes back to the bench for 1 game and they slash his price by like 20% when really they should just make him like 6K forever. And that way you don't get this situation. But if Gobert's out, there's not really any way around Naz Reid being one of the best plays on the slate. If Gobert is in at 6,800, it's a pretty appealing price tag for him as well. We did see him play 35.5 minutes last game. We know he's a good point per minute guy, and this is just a pretty cheap price tag. So whoever's starting at center for the Timberwolves looks good tonight.
Absolutely. And we said that on Monday when we had the same conversation. It's really just a matter of whether or not Rudy Gobert is going to be out there. That's an 8 o'clock game. Weird slate today because you have 1-7, 1-7:30, even for 10 games. And then you have what, four? Yeah, you have 4 8 p.m. games and then 4 at 10 p.m. or later. So this could get tricky. What about Kyle Anderson right now? A lot of Minnesota can kind of be written off unless you have different opinions there. But Kyle Anderson looks decent in our tools today. Rudy Gobert looks fine if he plays, but there's not a whole lot here going up against New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton. Kyle Anderson right now pulling 13% ownership, 7% chance of being optimal. Don't read it all into his last game. He just was in huge foul trouble the whole time, played 12 and a half minutes. He picked up 3 fouls in the first quarter, didn't play at all in the second quarter, picked up his 4th foul 45 seconds into the third. So then he missed the rest of the third quarter, picked up his 5th foul 2.5 minutes into the fourth quarter, went back to the bench, then came in, played 2 minutes and 25 seconds, and the game pretty much was over. So just pretty much throw that game away. At the same time, don't continue expecting 50 fantasy points a night from Kyle Anderson. That wasn't going to continue very long either. But overall, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute this season, likely to give you 32 to 34 minutes if he manages to avoid fouls. No Karl Anthony Towns, so that should help a little bit as well. He's at 0.88 DraftKings points per minute without Towns overall this year. So still a reasonable option, small forward, power forward eligible. The massive ceiling on Edwards. 6,900 price tag for Russell is fine as well. But like with Russell, it just gets back to what you were saying previously. I can say, oh yeah, I like D'Angelo Russell at $6,900. He has a nice ceiling, but you have to then also be saying like, who am I not playing out of? TJ McConnell, Kyrie Irving, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Trae Young, like whoever, all these really good guards on the slate. So that's why, again, you're just seeing like 7% ownership come into D'Angelo Russell. It's why you're seeing 4% come into Edwards as well, even though he does have more favorable positional eligibility at shooting guard, small forward. He's still in a price range where you have to be comparing him to all these other guys that just look a little bit better.
On the other side, we have Brandon Ingram projected in right now. I kind of feel like you're just not going to see him until we get some word that we
he's in. What? He's playing.
Wait, he's officially in?
Barring a setback in warm-ups.
Oh, when did that news come out?
This morning.
Oh, okay. I did the
run
sheet.
I was on Twitter, not falling asleep.
Okay. I did the run sheet today, ran to get a haircut, and everything I was seeing, it's like, until we get word. So we've gotten word is what you're saying. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you. Yeah, that makes things a whole lot different because do we get word on any, let me just make sure in case I missed anything, because you had Najee, you had Dyson Daniels turned his ankle last game, right? I think.
Yeah, he left early last night.
And Zion's still out.
I didn't catch anything on anybody other than seeing that Ingram is expected.
Okay, fair enough. But that's a big piece of news for sure. Because he's been out for, when's the last time he played? November 25th. He's been out legitimately 2 calendar months at this point with that toe. So yeah, if he's expected to play, that definitely changes things. It also makes this Pels team less appealing than they would be if they were dealing with a litany of injuries like we've seen over the past little while.
Yeah. So this one's just clearly difficult to talk about right now because it depends who exactly is out. We got Jackson Hayes in the starting lineup last night, but now you have Ingram back. We don't know what Marshall's status is going to be. So basically it just makes this whole team, having Ingram back makes the team look just unappealing if they're not shorthanded. If he's going to cut into McCollum's rates, he's going to cut into Joval's rates. Ingram himself is $8K, so I'm not messing with that salary. If Marshall is out, then you do expect increased playing time for guys like Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. We've seen Nance playing alongside Joval a little bit recently. Don't think he did last night, but in the 2 previous games he had for a couple of minutes. Still just, a very risky option at 4,200. Overall, though, I think this is a pretty unappealing team unless we start getting guys ruled out.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's just because of Ingram coming back. It's a good spot. It's just that you have McCollum priced for him to be out. You have Joval priced for him to be out.
Denver has some question marks too. We'll talk about the Nuggets on the road against the Bucks. 233.5 total. Denver getting 7.5 here. So we have Nikola Jokic was questionable, ended up playing. They're on the second of a back-to-back today. Michael Porter Jr. has been out with for personal reasons. Bones Highland has been out. Is this team where it currently stands right now something like, let's start with Nikola Jokic, because Another guy, when we're talking about, just what type of value do you have on a 10-game slate at this price point? Looking at Jokic in our boom bust tool, essentially just even leverage, 6.5% optimal score, 6.1% projected ownership right now. He looks just kind of okay in our tools today.
Yeah, it's very similar to how Embiid looked, where you're clearly going to be happy if you get to those guys. The problem is just that you have a lot of plays in that like 10K, 9 to 10K range that have very, very high ceilings. And you have a lot of good center plays, as you always do on a slate of this size. So it just makes it more difficult to really build around those guys. We're seeing it get back more so to where we were, a month or two ago, where there's just more value in the mid-range, at least right now on this slate, than there is paying all the way up to somebody like Jokic. That's not to say you can't roster him. Obviously, he's a really, really good play anytime he's on the slate. It's just that, he's got a 6.5% chance of being optimal. He's getting 6% ownership. There's just nothing that really stands out there. Jamal Murray, kind of the same thing at 7,400. Very high ceiling for him. They've been staggering his minutes with Jokic, which is really good for his production. But there's just so many good guards on this slate that as long as Jokic is playing, it's difficult to say that Murray is a priority. It's more so just, I have this tournament lineup where Jamal Murray fits. Cool. That's a good way to be contrarian. But it's not like you're going into a slate saying like, oh yeah, I'm just going to jam in a bunch of Jamal Murray, because I think that's really where the field is messing up. Because again, you just have to be saying like, all right, well, which guards that the field is playing shouldn't they be? And so far we've just talked about so many good guards. It's not like I wanted to be taking some weird stand where I'm just playing Jamal Murray instead of all of them.
Right. Absolutely.
If Jokic is out, that changes. Murray ends up looking very good at 7,400.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. That changes everything. Do you have any thoughts on non-Jokic guys being out? Like if Porter and Bones Highland remain out?
I don't know about Highland. I'm assuming Porter is out. I would guess he's going to be a bit. But yeah, that's just a guess. I mean, if Porter is back, I guess it's entirely possible, but I just kind of assume he's going to be away from the team for a little bit.
All right. So no surprise in last game at all that Giannis had his minutes limited, not limited. They were trashing the Detroit Pistons. I looked at that game early on. It was like 65-30, Adam. It was at no point even remotely competitive. He still dropped around 2 fantasy points per minute in that game. So kind of par for the course. He's 1.71 DraftKings points per minute on the season. Now going up against Denver. Not a lot of ownership going to Giannis for the same reason that there's so many other high price guys that are going, in the high single digits. But I have very little doubt that, he just gets back to his normal playing time, assuming this game stays competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I expect plenty of minutes for him, and he is a little bit easier to get to than guys like Jokic and Embiid, just because he does have forward eligibility. But you still run into that same problem where if you're going to Giannis, it just is going to probably end up costing you one of these really good like 9K range plays or 8K range plays somewhere in there. And it's just not going to be the easiest way to build right now. So he's getting a little bit more ownership than Embiid and Jokic because of his position. But again, I think it's just really difficult to build around him at this price when you have some value elsewhere. I think this is one of the more difficult teams to get to because you have Middleton back. That's going to cut into Drew Holiday's production. He's 8,900. Brook Lopez looks okay at 6,100. No Bobby Portis today, so maybe some increased playing time, or probably, I guess I should say, some increased playing time for Brook Lopez at 6,100. But also, there's a lot of centers, and he is still competing with Giannis, Drew, and Middleton for touches.
And I mean, Middleton came off the bench in his return. You still have to wonder, though, even with that game blowing out, he was still really only on pace to play around 21 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I mean, I expect that playing time to ramp up. Not necessarily like by a lot today, but in general.
Right. I know you touched on this a second, but just to nail it down here before we move on, with Bobby Portis being absent from this one, is there still really nothing that opens up enough for us to feel good about it?
I don't really think so, because you have Middleton playing, some minutes now. I don't know if he'll start or not, but him and Portis both came off the bench last game. I do think you probably see more minutes for Lopez, but I don't think it's enough to make him like a true priority at center. It's enough to make him a decent tournament option. But, other than that, you're probably just getting more minutes for a variety of guys that just aren't that good on a point per minute basis, whether that's Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Carter, Ingles, these guys that on a 10-game slate are just going to be pretty difficult to want to get to.
Okay. Keep it going then. Appreciate all you guys being with us this morning. So far, so good. So far, so good. We're sticking the basketball, and it just appears that Jordan doesn't believe it was the YouTube algorithm. You don't believe that, but I've noticed it, but it's not
like me personally or my microphone. Oh,
well then,
okay.
Jordan, if it's not YouTube, we must blame it on you then.
Yeah, I'll say so. Just to be clear, this isn't my fault. It's either YouTube or you.
Hey.
I don't control your internet there. I don't know.
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad though. Like it's still, you can still see and hear everything you're saying. Yeah, we're good.
I didn't know if you meant I was just like, like dozing off mid sentence and like snapping back, or if you meant like my mic was cutting out or what.
You're like, well, that's actually happening.
Right. Yeah.
Washington and Houston. Washington coming off a hard fought win on the road yesterday against the Dallas Mavericks. You saw Corey Kispert get the start there. Now that Porzingis is out, Rui's in LA. Denny Avdia played 32 minutes off the bench. We have a lot of ownership going to him. Kispert, I know he's not, the most prolific per minute guy, but 34 minutes in regulation. That's interesting. I mean, and they've got a game against the Houston Rockets. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Washington, despite the fact that they're playing the second of a back-to-back on the road today.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty appealing team to get to. A lot of ownership coming in here. You still have Denny Avdia at 4K, 32.5% owned. I expect him to come off the bench again. I assume they'll go with the same lineup they used yesterday. But like when Josh and I had talked about this game yesterday, I had said that I thought Avdia would start, but it wouldn't be surprising if it was Kispert. But either way, that you were expecting, even if he came off the bench, you were expecting 28 to 30 minutes from Avdia, who's like a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. Now he's in a good matchup against Houston, fast-paced team, not a good defensive team. Even assuming he's coming off the bench at 4K, I have no issue going back to him and expecting him to play, 28 plus minutes and just project as a very, very good option. Corey Kispert getting some ownership, not as good a point per minute guy, but
dirt
30,
cheap.
yeah, $3,100 and likely to play 30 plus minutes against the Houston Rockets. No problem going there. Kyle Kuzma's price tag jumped $900. He was relatively disappointing yesterday. He got really, really hot in the second half, and I actually didn't have him in most of my main stuff, so it looked like it was going to burn me, and then he went like the entire fourth quarter without doing anything. But now you have him back to like his normal price at $8,800, still pulling 20% ownership, still playing without Porzingis in a really good matchup. I think he's a good play. I think he's probably going a little bit over-owned, 12% chance of being optimal, but certainly nothing wrong with getting to him. $7,200 on Beal just seems like a very cheap price tag for this matchup, playing without Porzingis. The negative is that he did only play 30 minutes yesterday. If he only plays 30 minutes again today, that certainly makes the price tag look more correct. But, if he were to get up to 33, 34 minutes, then he would start to look underpriced here. DeLon Wright played 21.5 minutes. Monte Morris played 27.5. So you got them alongside each other a little bit, but not too much. So again, not a spot where I'm going crazy on either of those guys. If they land in a lineup here or there, fine. Daniel Gafford at 4,700, 9.5% ownership. I saw his name come up in chat. I do think he's a very interesting option here. He was in foul trouble yesterday. He ended up fouling out in 18.5 minutes. He's fouled out of each of the last couple of games. But if he avoids foul trouble, he is likely to be playing mid to upper 20s in minutes. It's just a matter of, can he avoid foul trouble here? But he's a good point per minute guy. He's in a good spot. He's not getting a ton of ownership. And there's nothing really stopping him from playing a lot of minutes outside of his propensity to foul. So I do like him quite a bit in tournaments at this pretty cheap price tag. We got 15 minutes from Barton last game. That's not enough for me to really want to get to him. Kendrick Nunn didn't play yesterday. Don't know if he'll play today.
Man, the Kuzma spot's interesting just because the ceiling here. I mean, Houston allows
the ceiling's massive.
More made threes, more 3-point attempts than any other team in the league. Like, if he just starts ripping them, he's attempted double-digit threes in 5 straight games now. No Porzingis on the floor. I think we're saying the same thing, but if Kuzma heats up in a spot like this, you could be getting a monster game from him. It's
I think Kuzma's a really good play, and it helps that he's a forward as well. The thing that I'm kind of thinking about, though, and I think it's reflected in the optimal percentage, is like you can make a lot of 2v2s, right? Where you go from like a 20% Kuzma to say a 9% Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then you just drop another position by like $1,000. I think you can make a lot of plays like that become interesting in tournaments, and that's probably why Kuzma is projected to go a little bit overowned. But he is still obviously a good play if you've already found a couple contrarian plays within a lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, how about Houston? You and I were talking a lot about this the other day on Monday, both in agreement that, talking same thing, right? Like with Jalen Green, it's a little bit different, but with Jalen Green, just the ceiling there is real significant for a guy that when he's chucking and his shots are falling, you're going to get some monster. We've seen it in 2 of his last 3 games. He's got 40 plus actual points. No Kevin Porter. I mean, does Jalen Green's price point though? Like, he's actually come down $300.
Yeah, it went down.
Yeah, since last game. But I guess all I'm saying is we're both in agreement, right? That the floor with a guy like Jalen Green is pretty low. We saw that 2 games ago. He finished like that's exceptionally low. The Minnesota game on the 21st, but this guy's shot volume is so high right now. You're talking 30+% usage in pretty much all of these spots.
Yeah, and I think, I mentioned Bradley Beal on the other side of this game being 7,200 and not getting, just looking like a pretty decent option and pulling 16% ownership. There is no reason Bradley Beal should get 16% ownership and Jalen Green should get 4. Like, if anything, I think Green should be the higher owned of the two because I'm not entirely sure what they're doing with Beal's minutes. We know he's been banged up a lot recently, so I'm not confident that he has the same opportunity to play big minutes like Jalen Green does. If Jalen Green is playing well, he's likely giving you at least 34, 35 minutes, if not more. He has a 32.9% usage rate without Kevin Porter Jr. on the floor. He's at 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. Keep in mind that Bradley Beal is not the same massive usage guy this year that he has been in the past. Granted, his usage does go up a bit with Porzingis out, but you still have Kuzma doing a lot offensively there. So I think that Green and Beal really should be similarly owned, if not a slight edge to Jalen Green. And that's just not what we're seeing all right now, which is really, really interesting to me. I also, once again, really like Alperen Şengün. He's $8,700, 7% owned, but it's the same thing we talked about before. He's playing big minutes by design. Bruno Fernando typically hadn't really been in the rotation. Last game, Fernando played 11 minutes, but Usman Garuba only played 2. So the main takeaway there is you're just getting one of those guys essentially instead of both of them like we were earlier in the year. So you're getting more minutes for Şengün, and then you're just also getting a lot more of the offense running through him without Kevin Porter Jr. 24.5% usage rate, 22.5% assist percentage, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 18% rebounding percentage on top of that. Even at the elevated price tag, I like getting to Şengün. KJ Martin is going to look like a reasonable, last guy in type value option at 5,100. If Jabari Smith Jr. is in at 5,200, I'm interested there. He's been about a fantasy point per minute guy without Kevin Porter Jr. If he's out, you get a $4,400 Tari Eason, kind of as close to a free square as you're probably going to get. 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this year, likely playing 26 to 28 minutes if Jabari Smith is out. So that's going to look really good. Eric Gordon at 4,600 sees a bump, about a 20% usage rate when Jalen Green is on and Kevin Porter Jr. is off. I love this Houston team in tournaments, and the only guy getting double-digit ownership right now is KJ Martin.
And low double-digit ownership.
And that's 12%. Like, who cares?
Yeah, like Şengün 7%, Green pulling sub 4%. It's a pretty fun game for sure between two teams that aren't exactly all that imposing. It's a good spot, no doubt. Jordan just sent me what Spencer Dinwiddie said about the Wizards yesterday, and then what Kuzma said back.
Yeah, Dinwiddie is still crying because of how he was treated 2 years ago.
What a silly
last year,
thing
whatever
to say,
it was.
though. For them, it's a showcase. They're over there trying to get paid, not trying to play winning basketball. For a team that has real aspirations and has an MVP, we want or went to the conference finals last year. We have to be better to a man.
Yeah. Keep in mind the winning Dallas Mavericks are 500.
Exactly. And Kuzma quote tweeted with, the funny thing is they don't play winning basketball with laughing faces, peace symbols, and a clown face.
Yeah. The clown face was the one that really got me because Kuzma was on that team with Dinwiddie when Dinwiddie got traded, and when he left, he was just talking about how like they didn't let him have the leadership role that he should have, and like all that stuff. And so the clown emojis what really got me because you knew that was personal and
no question
for Dinwiddie.
Plus, Kuzma's playing the best basketball that we've seen out of this guy.
Kuzma's playing really well. Kuzma basically ended up doing what Dinwiddie was brought in to do. Like obviously different positions and everything, but like Dinwiddie was supposed to be that second piece that like kind of picked up Beal and brought everything together. And instead Dinwiddie was just non-existent. And Kuzma turned into this guy that nobody knew he could be.
Yeah. Pretty fun. I mean, you guys, you're not winning a championship this year, but neither are 29 teams, but I'm saying like you have been a pretty fun team to watch. You have some good pieces there.
Yeah. For a relatively bad team. I mean, like the Westbrook team, like you're never winning anything, but they were fun. Now you have Kuzma, Porzingis, Beal. When they're healthy, they're fun. It's just they haven't been healthy. But yeah, like you said, most teams don't really have a chance to win anyway. At least Washington is fun to watch. The thing that sucks is that like they're just stuck in purgatory with Beal.
Basketball purgatory, dude. Well, they're in purgatory right now, whereas like most teams are in purgatory. The large amount of teams are in basketball purgatory where you get into the playoffs, and if you do, you're still like unceremoniously swept, or it's just ugly. You know what I mean? The Sixers were like, remember the Iguodala, Spencer Hawes days, like the Evan Turner, they had that team. They were every year getting in as the 7-8 seed and then had no chance. And everybody knew it from the beginning.
And Washington's the kind of team that adding the play-in is just going to like make it impossible for them to ever rebuild correctly because they will refuse to tank. Like that's just how they are. Right. But it just gives them an extra incentive, to be like, oh, well, we're 7 games under 500, but we can still get the 10 seed.
Yeah. I think they win the play-in and lose to the Sixers in the first round last year?
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago?
It was the Westbrook year.
But they definitely won the play-in round. I forget.
Yeah.
Forget what. Yeah. Memphis and Golden State. Before we do though, hey, Prize Picks. How about Prize Picks saying, we want to give you guys $100 first match deposit bonus, and us saying, all right, Prize Picks, we got you. We're going to give everybody that signs up using the link in the description and in the chat a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That's right. Every single tool, not just for basketball, football, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, PGA, everything. If there's sports out there, these contests for sports, if there's props out there on Prize Picks for these sports, we got you covered across the board. All of our tools, ownership, player projections, top stack, boom bust, the lineup generator for basketball and football, the lineup builder, everything, whether you're hand building, single entry, 5 max, 20 max, 150, whatever it is, we got you. And Fantasy Cruncher add-on on top of that. If you're looking to do that, you can do it as well. You're getting the free month, $120 value. You're getting the first match deposit bonus up to $100 over on Prize Picks when you use that link. And more than anything, it's actually a sweet place to play. Like I know Eric being out there in California where you can't legally bet, heavy on Prize Picks. If you're in non-legal betting states, like this is the best way to scratch that itch, so to speak. You're just building lineups with props, essentially parlays anywhere else, except the difference is, number one, there's no juice on these props. You're just taking the over under. You can mix as many sports as you want, but if you hit 5 of 5, you're 10xing. If you hit 6 of 6, you 25x. But again, unlike the traditional ones, like if you're on another book, you go 4 or 5, it doesn't matter. Like you don't get shit. You don't, there's nothing there. There's no way, there's no consolation for getting 4 or 5. Prize Picks you 2x if you hit 4 of 5. You still make money back if you hit 3 of 5. So you're sustaining a bankroll. You're also putting yourself in a position to win big money. Check it out. You can do the power plays too, where if you hit 4 of 4, you 10x. A lot of ways to make money, a lot of ways to hit big. And you're getting a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum simply by using that link, signing up and depositing. Plus you're getting up to $100 first match deposit bonus. So check it out. Awesome site. Lots of ways to do big things over there and utilize all of our tools for Prize Picks and for DFS, which are entirely free to you for entire calendar month, including the Discord and everything on the site. Links in the description and in chat. That's Prize Picks, sponsor of the NBA Strategy Show. All right. Someone said, who's playing PGA? PGA is massive, dude. For I don't know if you're saying like what's up next, but PGA for DFS is massive. All right. There aren't many sports that you get milli makers in, and PGA is one of them for sure. Memphis. So how about, last on Monday, we thought it was just some maintenance. Steven Adams is out for a bit now, Adam.
Yeah. And that's one of the bigger questions we have right now. So we have Brandon Clark projected for 24 minutes, 10% ownership, but he came off the bench behind Xavier Tillman last game, only played 12 minutes. So I think it's really interesting to see who starts at center here. If it's Xavier Tillman, he is center only, but he's $3,200. He played 30 minutes, and that was without garbage time or closing minutes last game. I think that if he starts, it's likely you would probably project around 28 for him, around 20 for Clark. But we saw them basically treat him like a starter. And similarly, we saw them treat Brandon Clark actually even worse than when Steven Adams starts. But so I think it creates a situation where if Xavier Tillman starts, he's a decent value, but you do have to keep the opportunity costs in mind. You can get a good point per dollar result at 3,200 where he scores 22 fantasy points and you're still just drawing dead because other centers score 20 to 30 more actual points. And then Brandon Clark just becomes this high risk, high reward option where you don't know if he's going to play 12 minutes. You don't know if he's going to play 26 off the bench, but he is a good point per minute guy. So if he finds those minutes, he's going to look good. If Brandon Clark starts, he becomes a clear priority. Similarly to I was saying with Tari Eason, if he ends up starting at 4,400, you just get this guy in Clark who's averaged in 3 starts this year, 28 minutes per game. He's, about a fantasy point per minute guy, if not a little bit more, and just looks like a clear top value who's going to be extremely popular. So high risk, high reward tournament play. If he comes off the bench, you saw what the floor looks like last time out. But if he starts, a clear top value. If Tillman starts, a very, very good point per dollar value, but you still have to balance that with the opportunity cost of using the center position on him. As far as the rest of the team, John Morant at 9,700 looks good. Just another guard in this price range. He is pulling a little bit more ownership than Harden and SGA at 9,700, but I think, a good spot against Golden State. Should be a fast-paced game. You have a 245 total here. One thing working against Morant is that he just doesn't typically play as many minutes as other guys. Even in competitive games, you're often seeing 33 minutes from Morant. And that's kind of just Taylor Jenkins' MO, is that he runs these deep rotations, especially in the regular season. In the postseason, he doesn't always adjust all that well either. He kind of keeps doing it. But especially in the regular season, he doesn't really run these guys into the ground. So it does hurt a little bit, where Ja is a better point per minute guy than, say, Harden with Embiid. But Harden is likely to play 3 to 4 minutes more. SGA is likely to play a few minutes more. But, still should be a very, very fast-paced game. $7,300 price tag for Bane, who's now seemingly going to be playing 32 to 34 minutes. Jaren Jackson at 7,100 is going to look pretty good. Dylan Brooks, you can just, take a prayer on him if you need to. But I think this is a really appealing spot for Memphis. Jackson at 1% ownership is interesting just because of the volatility in his game. Similarly, you have Dylan Brooks at 6% owned. The immediate example I think of is KJ Martin pulling 12% ownership. Not that there's anything wrong with KJ Martin, but he's the same exact play as Dylan Brooks.
How many 2 center builds you think we're going to see tonight? You think there's going to be a lot of that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be normal. You're going to get a lot of 3-point guard or 2 center builds.
Yeah, it makes, and it's usually the way it should be, honestly. All right, Golden State 3-point favorites here. 2-4 monster total in this game too. 243. I believe it's second highest on the slate behind only the Spurs and Lakers that we closed this one out with. Draymond Green 6,300, 11% ownership. All of these guys, it's funny though. You got 3 of the starters in the 6K range. Steph Curry is really the only one that is very expensive. And once again, he falls into that same guard category, a little bit more expensive, but you were just talking about Harden, Irving, SGA, John Morant. Steph Curry's in there as well, and he's getting sub 2% today.
Yeah, and it's always somewhat appealing to get that really low owned Curry and just hope you get the 10 3-pointer game. The problem is just that he is more expensive than those guys, and it's not like it's one guy. It's not like Ja is 9,700. You can pay 800 more and just get Curry at no ownership. You need him to beat Ja and Young and SGA and Harden. This whole group of guys, which is obviously pretty unlikely, and you're paying a premium for it. So I get why he's so low owned. Still nothing wrong with playing him in large field tournaments, but it is just going to be a little bit more difficult to get to him than it is these other guys because of the price tag. Draymond to 6,300, nothing exciting there, but I think it's just, he's reasonably priced. He's likely to give you 32 to 34 minutes. He is forward eligible, which, that's kind of been the theme on this slate is if you're remotely decent as a forward, you're going to pull some ownership because you're not a guard or a center. Wiggins, same kind of thing at 6%. I think it would be interesting just to kind of flip flop your exposures to those two. Right now, we have them projected nearly identically, 0.02 of a point difference, but 11% ownership coming into Draymond, 9% to Wiggins. Not any sort of crazy gap there, but I think just maybe playing a little bit more Wiggins, a little bit less Draymond would make some sense.
Favorite plays from this game on either side?
If Brandon Clark starts, Brandon Clark, I'm not expecting him to start just because he didn't start last game. Outside of that, Bain. Ja and Bain.
Toronto, Sacramento, 239 point total here in Sacramento. Now, you have OG Anunoby, only guy on the injury report. He's expected to play though. Nick Nurse like, hey, he's 94% good. So
he's playing 36.8 minutes instead of 40.
Exactly. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he'll play 42.
Right.
But is this par for the course again with Toronto? Big minutes, condensed rotation, huge minutes to the starters. If you get them, it's fine. Because it is a spot against a fast-paced Sacramento team that is typically always involved in high-scoring affairs. But is it the same thing, really? Just like you play them for the minutes?
Yeah, and the matchup. Like I'm kind of
the matchup, of course, too. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I'm kind of confused by the lack of ownership here. On the one hand, I realize that none of these price tags stand out as great, but 8,100 for Van Vliet, who has seen an uptick in production recently and is playing big minutes as you would expect against the Kings, only pulling 6-7% ownership. I guess it's the same thing that we were saying with all these other guys, like Jamal Murray, like D'Angelo Russell. You can, if I say that I'm prioritizing Van Vliet, it means I'm not playing some of these other guys, but certainly a good spot for him, a massive ceiling for him. Anunoby, shooting guard, small forward. He's projected for 3% ownership right now. That probably comes up when we get confirmation that he's playing, but he's just going to be easy to fit into lineups in a good spot. Scotty Barnes has forward eligibility, getting 6% ownership, very high ceiling on him. Gary Trent's gotten more expensive, so it's probably going to be difficult to get there, but he does also have shooting guard, small forward eligibility. And then if you can get to Siakam, he hasn't played quite as well recently. We've also seen Van Vliet's rates kind of go up over that time, and he is center only on DraftKings, but 9,600 playing huge minutes. The opportunity is certainly there for him.
Yeah,
at the very least, I think this team is like Houston, where like I get why you can't just point to most of these guys and say like, oh yeah, I want to play 30%, but within a given lineup, you can just be like, all right, I have my 6 guys that are popular and are just like clear top plays. And then here I'm going to put Jalen Green and here I'm going to put Scotty Barnes or something like that.
I think the center only eligibility on Siakam would definitely depress that ownership a lot.
Yeah. If he was $9,600 power forward, he'd be very popular here.
No question. Yeah. Cause like you have the value, you have the mid range, you have Şengün as well. And he's not even pulling a lot of ownership. You have Capella, right. You have, there's so much there that it definitely, it helps or it hurts a guy like Siakam at that. Plus you also like, if you're at the 9,600 on Siakam and then you can just play it up to a Jokic or some of those, like he's in a weird range for sure.
Yeah. It is interesting to note. So on FanDuel, he's 9,400 with power forward and center, still only projected for 8% ownership. We only have him with a 6% chance of being optimal. I think I'm just a little higher on that there. I think he's a really, really good play on FanDuel.
Let me ask you this. On DraftKings, we can make a seamless transition here over to the Sacramento side. At they are $800 difference in price, understandably so, right? But then you have, okay, so this is interesting. Just in this range specifically, there's one range here. It's a wide range, but with a lot of other guys out in this price tier, there's only a few of them that are actually going to be active tonight. Şengün's 8,700. Siakam, you bump that up to the next tier, 9,600, right? And then you have, and they're literally in tiers of their own. Like Şengün is the only guy in the 8K range tonight on DraftKings, the only one that's going to play. There's nobody else on a 10-game slate. And then in the 9K range with Porzingis out, Siakam's the only one in between 9 and 10K. And then you have Domantas Sabonis in this Sacramento side against the Toronto Raptors. Who do you like the most of this trio here at their respective price points?
Şengün, just because he is the cheapest and he still gives you that massive ceiling.
He kind of has the Domantas Sabonis. Like as far as how they produce fantasy points.
Right. Well, yeah, they both have that triple double upside. Sabonis is going to get there more often, but
yeah,
without Kevin Porter Jr. on the floor, Şengün's averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute this year. Sabonis is at 1.36. Siakam is around 1.3. You can argue that Sabonis and Siakam should be projected for a couple more minutes than Şengün, and I think that would be correct. But Şengün still plays 36, 37 minutes often enough that you're going to get games where they all just kind of play the same. So to me, the salary is the deciding factor there. If they were all priced the same, then I would say, Sabonis first, followed by Siakam, followed by Şengün, just because of production and playing time. But I think that gap, given that they produce about the same fantasy points, I think the gap in price is enough to offset a couple of minutes in terms of projection.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the minutes that Şengün's playing now, it's at least enough to where it's not a huge gap in playing time, where before it would have been huge. And Kevin Porter, like you said, being out, I agree, man. 8,700. When people are saying like Şengün looks too expensive, when you consider what his price compared to other guys at the center position, it's really not that bad. What are you doing with Sacramento though, outside of Sabonis?
Yeah. So, I mean, Sabonis, if you can get there, cool, but he's just sort of a luxury like these other centers we talked about. De'Aaron Fox, I think, is comparable to Fred VanVleet. There's so many good guards on the slate. The wings are going to be the easiest spots to get to. Kevin Huerter at 5,200, shooting guard, small forward. He's pulling 10%, which is the only double-digit owned guy on this team. It's just going to be easy to fit him into lineups the same way it is with, say, KJ Martin. Harrison Barnes at 5,700, Keegan at 5K, both look fine as well. We've seen big minutes from Keegan recently. Played another 34 minutes last game, would have played about 37 and a half had the game been competitive to the end. Don't know how long that lasts, but the increased playing time has coincided with him seemingly impressing Mike Brown with rebounding. Brown challenged him to rebound better after a game where I think he didn't have any rebounds, and Murray just kind of showed up, and he's been playing really big minutes ever since. So I still think that, at 5K, he becomes riskier than he was at 4,400, because at 4,400, if you just went back to the 27-minute Keegan Murray, you could still get there. Now, if you get like 27 minutes from Keegan Murray at 5K, it's that much more difficult. But if he plays 34, 35 minutes, he's still clearly underpriced at 5K.
We got 2 games to go here. By the way, thanks to all you guys who've hit that thumbs up, subscribed, and ratings, reviews, and all that stuff on the podcast here. It helps us a ton. Appreciate you. And we always try and read and respond to your comments down below as well. If you're someone watching after the fact, goes a long way. Utah and Portland. All right, let's get into this one a little bit here. So Portland 3.5 point favorites, 237.5 total here. Portland at home. We'll start with Utah then. Is there a clear top option here today, or are these just like kind of sprinkle in Beasley, maybe a little Clarkson and Conley?
I think it's mostly sprinkling those guys in. I would add Walker Kessler to that trio. He disappointed last game. He disappointed the game before that. But the thing for me is that he dealt with foul trouble last game, for one. And for two, I think you're kind of seeing an overreaction now, like an overcorrection, where the first couple of games where he started and Vanderbilt came off the bench, you got like 27, 28, 30 minutes in that range from Kessler. And I thought it was risky to just think that he's going to always play 30 minutes. And then now you've seen the last couple of games, for one reason or another, him not get those minutes. He played 24 to 25 2 games ago. And then last game you had foul trouble plus a blowout. So he only played 22 and a half. I still think you should be projecting him to play around 26 to 28 minutes, somewhere in there. On average, it's not a bad spot for him. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy, and he's gone from being, like a 30-something% owned guy, obviously different slate. So there's more context to it than just the salary, but he's gone from being like a 30% owned guy at 5,700 to like not any ownership at 6K. Again, there's a million centers today. I understand it's a 10-game slate as well, but he's still just a very high upside option at 6K. So I think he's going a little bit overlooked, probably just because of recency bias. But then you have Clarkson, Conley, Beasley, all just at favorable price tags. Beasley's been in the starting lineup. He's another shooting guard, small forward guy, just shy of 5K. He only played 20 minutes last game, but typically when he starts, you're going to get 28 to 30. I wouldn't read too much into last game. You get a nice ceiling from Clarkson. You get something from Conley, a decent price tag, I guess. 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Not much usage there, but he is about a 34% assist percentage. If you can get to Lauri Markkanen, great. He's excellent. Like, he's been one of the best players in the league this year. It's just that the price tag's adjusted on him in a way that it hasn't adjusted on a lot of other guys. Like if you're going to have Markkanen at 9,100, it's hard to argue that Morant should only be 600 more or SGA should only be 700 more. So that's kind of the problem you run into there. But yeah, I think this is another team that they're just interesting in tournaments because there is plenty of upside at these price tags. Sexton has a ceiling at 4,500 as well, but none of them look like guys that you're going to point to and say like, oh, like you really should just be playing tons and tons of this guy at the expense of, others.
We had a super chat from Christopher Hooks. Thanks, Christopher. What are a few ways to edit Fantasy Cruncher inputs to start seeing results? Well, first up, we have tutorials over at Stokastic that are entirely free. Adam, very difficult question to answer, especially concisely. But do you have, if someone were starting off with fantasy, are there any tips that you give them out of the gate, mistakes maybe that you made when you first started that you don't make now?
Yeah, so I'd say for one, look at what Terry said in chat because that is exactly correct. Pay attention to the tutorials that you talked about. Just be as familiar with Fantasy Cruncher as you can be, so that if like the big thing I would say generally, because like you said, it's not something you can like specifically answer because as Terry said, it's not like there's not like a correct setting where it's just like, oh, now you right. It's not like, oh, now you win. But the big thing is spend time in lineup study and don't even necessarily, pay attention to what, good players, winning players are doing. Like if you're drastically different, if what you're doing is drastically different than them, there's a good chance you're messing up somewhere. But like, it's not even trying to replicate what won yesterday's slate because every slate is independent and there's just gonna be weird shit that happens. And if you're just trying to like, if you're tweaking settings to say like, oh, well, this would have done well yesterday, there's a good chance that it's just coincidence and it's going to suck tomorrow. But have an idea, like think about what you want your lineups to look like, what you think strategically your lineup should look like, what you think a good strategy is, and then figure out ways by playing around in lineup study to get Fantasy Cruncher to do what you want. Because really the whole point of Fantasy Cruncher is giving you a fast, efficient, hopefully mistake-free way to build the lineups that you want to build, like that you would build by hand. It's just doing it much, much faster. It's optimizing. Like that's what his job is. So yeah, it's just spend time, just figure out how to get it to do what you want it to do for your lineups. My settings are going to be different than yours or different than Josh's. They're different than everybody's, but it does what I want it to do. And it's really just a matter of spending time and figuring out how to get it to do that.
Yeah. And I know one thing a lot of people are going to run into is like when they do it, they'll get lineups and be like, oh, I don't like those lineups. And then you just make such heavy tweaks that like, I don't think the understanding that Cruncher isn't a magic potion that just like makes the best you everything. And that was the question. Everything, all of your inputs matter, but you know that too, right? Like where you make so many tweaks where you're literally just trying to find lineups that you like up here subjectively, and you're completely ignoring the projections and the ownership and everything else.
Right. And it's where it just comes back to kind of just paying attention to because all Fantasy Cruncher is doing is using the inputs that you give it and the rules that you give it and giving you the best options, best lineups to choose from. So like one thing I like as an example that I've gone back and forth a lot with this year, and it's just tough to get right, is I like once I get my lineups out of Fantasy Cruncher and I sort them by, let's say, projection and ownership, I found sometimes where it's like, okay, well, I'm getting these lineups now that I'm playing in tournaments where I have like 4% owned guys. And this lineup is just like too low probability. And a reason might be that I have either too much randomness in Fantasy Cruncher or I'm using exposure caps that are too tight. And so it's not I'm not allowing it to build lineups that are anywhere close to the optimal lineup. Whereas then if I just say like, okay, I'm going to use less randomness and no exposure caps, then I'm getting lineups where like I'm not even getting access to like the Steph Curry type, right, low probability, massive ceiling type guys. So like that's one spot where like it's just a constant like trying to find that balance. But there's just a lot of stuff like that where it's just a matter of just tweaking and figuring out exactly how it fits into your process as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, great explanation. Talk about Portland here, then we'll wrap it up with the Spurs and the Lakers. Oh man, here, throw another guard into the mix, Adam. Throw another 10K guard into the mix with Damian Lillard getting 8% here. Not a bad matchup against Utah, a faster paced Utah team than we've seen in the past. 237.5 total in this game. Portland has one of the nicer implied totals on the slate. Throw him into the bucket with all of these other 10K guys. Like, dude, how the hell are you, if you're hand building today, how the hell are you making differentiations at this position?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those, like I've said before, back in, like years ago when I would hand build, my strategy was basically to like put together what I thought the optimal lineup was, before optimizers, and then just like kind of find the spot that had like the most pivots and just like rotate through all those guys. Like this would be one of those slates where I'm just like, all right, well, I'm taking like this small forward in every lineup. I'm taking this, whatever. And then here I'm playing Dame, here I'm playing SGA, here I'm playing,
exactly. No rhyme or reason other than like, I should probably have some of him because these guys are so close in protection to each other.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, good luck. Like you're gonna have to get it right, but there's no like easy solution for it. They're all just going to project close enough to each other where, on a 1-game slate, it's just variance basically. And so that's why I think, probably unless one of these guys just ends up not being popular at all, not taking a massive stand probably makes sense, kind of just getting to all of them, in different lineups. But Dame's certainly a very good option as well. Should play 36, 37 minutes. This is also why you're seeing, to reiterate, this is why you're seeing more condensed ownership come in to like small forwards like KJ Martin, even though clearly you would rather, they're not as good a play as somebody like Dame. It's that there's just not guys in that range that look
absolutely.
There's not as many guys in that range that look similar. So yeah, Dame's going to look very good here. No issues going to Nurkic in tournaments. Again, center, there's a lot of them, but he's 7K, 5% owned. Jeremy Grant down to 6,200 and Anthony Simons down to 6,300. Those are both very favorable price tags. You have Josh Hart pulling 10% for the same reasons as KJ Martin. I think all 5 of the starters look pretty good.
Jordan, this is nuts. We're on like a 1-second delay. No, but usually it's at least like 7-8 seconds. I'm talking 1 second. That's beautiful. I'm shocked at how I've never seen us do a video that wasn't delayed like at least 7-8 seconds in a spot like this. That's pretty nice. All right, let's wrap this one up. Spurs and Lakers. One last thing, guys, for all of you who have wanted to get in on the tools, and maybe you're just not playing a ton of money, right? You're playing micro stakes, you're grinding every day, working that bankroll up, staying committed, and you're doing things the right way, right? You're good with the bankroll and all of that, but you're still grinding your way up. If BetMGM is available to you, listen to this. BetMGM is available to you. Maybe you've been rocking the Stokastic avatar, trying to get in the Hall of Fame. You've done so, but maybe it's in the quarter arcade or something like that. Like, all right, look, I'm looking to take my game to another level. Not sure right now, though, that I want to pay that much per month because I'm not playing enough to justify it. And what if I don't win? Well, if you have 2 minutes of your time, literally 2 minutes to sign up, the link's in the description and in pin chat in the comments and the chat.
That might be a worse pick than Lindquist.
Oh, Ben's?
Yeah.
Dude, it's bad. I know.
I realize I can't talk because I just didn't do it, but
no. He wasn't there. That's like, he did that on his own.
Yeah, he wasn't there. You're right.
That's a bad one, dude. I know. Someone said he looks, you're going to love this. Like he's on the side of one of those like HVAC vans, like the heating and cooling vans that always have the guy on there, like doing one of those. Yeah. What he looks like. If MGM's available to you, and especially like MGM, if Prize Picks isn't, MGM probably is. If MGM isn't, Prize Picks probably is. So you're getting one or the other. If you have $10 in 2 minutes, you sign up using the link. Steps are super easy. You put $10 in, you make a bet on whatever. Just don't do like the odds boost or anything. It's got to be a straight bet. Okay. And after that settles, you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus. That's $240 value. All of our tools that we've talked about, I already mentioned them throughout the entire show. I won't waste your time with on any of that, but just know all of our tools, you're getting them for 2 full months, including access to our Discord, everything, $10 bet. That's it. $10 into MGM when you use the link, and not just that, you're also getting first bet insurance up to $1,000. So if your first bet's $10 and you lose, you're getting to all of that 10 back in bonus bets. If it's 50, 1,000, 100, if you lose, you're getting it all back in bonus bets. If you win, you win. Wash your hands clean of all of that. It's beautiful. Legitimate no-brainer. Take advantage of it. The thing here, we want you guys to win. We want you guys to win. Use our tools. Every sport for this one, you got access to all of it for 2 months, no matter what. And if it's not for you at the end, all right. If it is, stick around. We'd love to have you part of the community. So check it out. Links in the description and in chat. And remember, it must be 21 years or older to gamble. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Let's
Red Skittles said he
out.
definitely looks like he has a van. Not sure about the rest.
Who? Oh, yeah. That's good. All right, let's wrap it up. Spurs, LA, Lakers, 244 point total here. So the San Antonio Spurs, 5.5 point road dogs, expected to get Anthony Davis back on the other side of this one as well. But what do we make of Zach Collins today, pulling almost 21% ownership at close to minimum salary?
That is wild.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, especially how deep that position is, and we already have some value on this slate.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Zach Collins is too cheap, but he's just going to back up Jakob Poeltl. And, last game you had Jakob Poeltl in foul trouble. You got the dream case for Zach Collins. He got to play 22 minutes instead of 16. But normally you're getting at least 26 minutes for Poeltl. You're getting the rest for Collins. But if he does avoid foul trouble and the game's competitive, there's a good chance you're getting 28 to 30 from Poeltl. So I think Collins is fine. I think that ownership probably comes down as the day goes on. If you get to a situation where you're getting 4 or 5% ownership on Collins, I think he's somewhat interesting in large field tournaments just because of the upside he gives you. Good point per minute guy that if you catch, Poeltl foul trouble can be good. If 1/5 of the field's rostering him, which again, I don't think holds, but that would just be insane. And I would just find a million other things to do on this slate. Jakob Poeltl at 6K looks good. 14% ownership. So it is kind of interesting that now you're finally getting ownership coming into Poeltl after he's been low owned a lot recently, but $6,000 is just too cheap for him. Should give you around 26 minutes. He's like a 1.2 to 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy without Devin Vassell on the floor. So it's really just a matter of can he stay on the floor and avoid foul trouble? And he's got a pretty good matchup here against the Lakers. You are going to have Anthony Davis back, so that should solidify their defense a bit. But, still, it's the Lakers as a whole. They're not playing a ton of defense, and Jakob Poeltl is a good point per minute guy. So certainly like Jakob Poeltl quite a bit. Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, both fine if you can get to them. We know the upside that Keldon gives you, north of a 30% usage rate without Devin Vassell this year. He's an example of somebody that I think is kind of an interesting pivot away from Kyle Kuzma. He's $1,600 less expensive. He gives you similar usage. He gives you similar playing time. Kuzma's going to project better, but, Johnson's cheaper and certainly has that path to a big game at half the ownership. Trey Jones is about a fantasy point per minute guy at 6,200. He's a decent McConnell pivot. I still prefer TJ McConnell, but you are getting a 60 to 7 ownership discount going from McConnell to Trey Jones, and they're not that different. I do expect McConnell to play 5 to 6 minutes more, and that's why he's better and projects better, but they're not 60 to 7 different. Jeremy Sohan, sort of a last guy in at 4,800. So once again, just another very appealing team to get to. This slate's kind of the opposite of yesterday, where it was tough to find a bunch of great game environments that we really liked. Here, they just never end.
Well, they do end, and they end with the Lakers, because let me ask you very simply. Outside of FanDuel, I know Patrick Beverley's point guard, shooting guard. He's getting 8%. He's pretty cheap over there. But on DraftKings, LeBron James, highest priced player on the entire slate. Russell Westbrook's $8,300. Anthony Davis, barring any setbacks, is on track to return. Can you play anyone? And by the way, I know the matchup is really good as well against the San Antonio Spurs, worst defensive rated team in the league. At these salaries, nobody is priced for the return of Anthony Davis. They're priced with Anthony Davis out.
Yeah, especially if LeBron is in. If LeBron is out, you could take some shots on these guys like Dennis Schroeder, for example, because then you're getting a situation where they're priced for LeBron to be in, Davis to be out. Now you're getting Davis in, LeBron out. Without LeBron on the floor this year, Schroeder's at 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. If you put Anthony Davis on the floor for those minutes, Schroeder is he's only played 30 minutes, so you can't read anything into that at all. But there's a decent chance, you would just see the ball in his hands a little bit more and that he would still be a little bit more productive than he is on average. But if LeBron is in particular, I have absolutely nothing here because LeBron is priced for Davis to be in. Everybody's priced for LeBron's priced for Davis to be out. Everybody else is priced for Davis to be out. If LeBron sits, I still don't love this team, but you could at least start making cases to throw darts at Westbrook or Schroeder, but I don't have much of anything.
All right. Hey, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Me at Lafay_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein. Hey, you've been doing the video on the betting channel as well.
Yeah.
The Bet Pro one?
Yeah.
You got that today?
Yeah. Monday through Friday.
Awesome. Yeah. Monday through Friday. Dude, Bet Pro's crushing right now too. And your first week of Bet Pro's free if you haven't checked it out yet. Like it's been covering people to keep going with it with the way it's winning. Adam's putting out a video. No better person to find the best bets with that in conjunction with the tool. Yeah, Bet Pro, NBA Bet Pro, first week is free. But more than anything, check out Adam's video as well while you're over there. Check out everything we've got on that Odd Shopper channel. And we'll see you back here for the next one. Thanks as always, guys. Peace.